A very good morning to all of you and a warm welcome in joining us for the President's Design Award 2025 Recipients Forum, jointly organized by the Design Singapore Council as well as the Urban Redevelopment Authority. To open today's forum, it is my pleasure to right now invite architect Yap Lay Bee, Group Director for Architecture and Urban Design Group at the Urban Redevelopment Authority, to give her welcome remarks. Architect Yap, please.
Distinguished award recipients, industry partners, friends and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to URA. And on behalf of URA and the Design Singapore Council, congratulations to our award recipients. Okay, now every edition of the President's Design Award reminds me of why design matters. It's been a meaningful journey for me since I first had the opportunity to work with my colleagues in URA and also Design Singapore Council to conceptualize the prize. And what began as a shared vision to recognize the power of good design has now become, such a great platform where it celebrates good designers, good design, and also sparks conversations about the importance of design and how it has shaped our lives and places. So I'm very inspired and continue to do so by every editions of design winners. Now, this year and today, I'm very happy to have 5 of our winners to share with us their stories. First, we are very privileged to have with us Mr. Gabriel Tan, our designer of the year, and having known, he has moved to Porto, Portugal, but he continues to be the ambassador of Singapore design, demonstrating how our homegrown talent can successfully bridge Eastern and Western design sensibility while maintaining the highest standard of craft and innovation. The rest of the designers, you would also be familiar. Our Design of the Year recipients also similarly showcase the breadth and depth of our Singapore design capabilities. From WOHA Architects' sensitive adaptive reuse of the heritage at 21 Carpenter Street. And then we have Mandai Wild Group and RSP Bird Paradise, showcasing the importance of user experience. We have, though we are familiar with Grab, today the team from Grab is going to show to us how technology also plays a part, in them contributing to, surveying and kind of, crafting this very interesting model for Singapore. And then we also have Sabana Jurong campus. The design team will share with us how they can redefine the workspace typology, and each project tells a compelling story of our Singapore design excellence. So I'm very happy to be here, and I hope you are too. And let's put our hands together to welcome our speakers.
Thank you very much for that opening, Architect Yap. So ladies and gentlemen, the panel today will be discussing the topic celebrating the Singapore brand. As Singapore celebrates its 60th anniversary, today's panel spotlights the spirit of the Singapore brand and design excellence that's shaping our nation's future. Designing for a more inclusive and sustainable future might sound like lofty ambition for a small nation like Singapore, but homegrown design solutions can have a place in the world map of best design practices. So the very first speaker I'd like to introduce to you is PDA 2025 Designer of the Year, Mr. Gabriel Tan, Principal of Gabriel Tan Studio and Studio Antimatter. He is also the co-founder of Origin Made. Gabriel is a designer who operates at the intersection of cultures, traditions, and innovation. Having established his namesake studio in 2016, Gabriel's practice spans 2 continents with bases in Singapore and Portugal, enabling him to draw influences from both Asia and Europe. His works have won the Industrial Designer Society of America's IDEA Award, Japan Good Design Award, and has been exhibited at design fairs globally. So now is the time when you put your hands together for a warm welcome to Gabriel, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Gabriel. I was educated in Singapore. I wanted to share So, I mean, a bit about myself. I started my career in 2007. I was part of the design collective Out of Stock Design for almost 10 years. And then in 2016, I started my own practice, Gabriel Tan Studio. And we work on projects designing for different brands. And in 2020, I moved to Porto to set up a second studio where I live now with my family. And we also set up a brand called Origin Made, where we work with craftsmen from Portugal. So I want to start off with this quote from the Shakers, who some of you may know the Shakers, some of you may not, but I urge you to check out their work if you don't. So the Shakers used to say, like, don't make something unless it is both necessary and useful, but if it is both necessary and useful, don't hesitate to make it beautiful. And this really resonates with my own philosophy. Because sometimes I think we designers have a certain guilt when we make something beautiful, but I think that beauty is also a form of function as well. So one of the first projects and my first clients back in 2016 was this Japanese brand called Ariake. Ariake, when they first approached me, it was actually owned by two factories, Lagnatech and Hirata Chair. So they were making this kind of furniture and selling mainly domestically in the south of Japan, in Kyushu. So their furniture was not very widely distributed even within Japan itself, but they had the ambitions to export their furniture overseas. So this was some of the furniture they were making back in 2016. And then Hirata Chair was another factory. So both of them, the owners of the factories were kind of childhood friends, and they were always exhibiting together, sharing a booth at fairs. And I met them at the Singapore Furniture Fair at Expo. And I found that it was quite I was quite curious because they were one of the only Japanese companies showing there. And they were telling me that they have showed in Singapore a few times, but they didn't have much results. So asked if I could go to Japan and visit their factory and discuss a way that I could help them out. So this was so when I saw this stool in particular in 2016, I felt that they had a lot of potential because they had clearly very good craftsmanship, just maybe not the best designs that is suited for the international market yet. So when they asked me to design for them, I suggested that instead of me just designing one or two products for you, and you putting it into your catalog, why don't we start a new brand where the two factories can co-own this new brand? And then I also get more designers involved to design for them so that they could have a bigger collection of 10 to 20 new products in the first 18 months or so. So they asked if I could work with a very small annual budget that they have for marketing to execute my plan. And I mean, at the time I just started my studio, so basically I would design for even a burger. So I said, yeah, sure, like I'll work with your budget. And I asked my friends as well if they are willing to come to Japan, Anderson and Vol from Norway, Staffan Holm from Sweden, and Keiji Ashizawa from Tokyo, and nobody have heard of these two companies in Kyushu, but they said that, yeah, like, they said they will go to Japan to eat a ramen, so to do furniture design for sure. And Keiji, of course, he says he would come too. And we got in Martina, a graphic designer from Zurich, to do the branding. And we sat together with the owners to discuss the concept of the brand. So for me, creative direction sometimes is not really about just me dictating everything and curating everything, but also getting the right group of people together to the table where we can then share ideas, because I don't have all the answers to do an international brand, because somebody from Scandinavia would know what works in their market, someone from Tokyo would know what works in Tokyo. So we would discuss both the branding and the furniture designs together, and that was how we made the first collection. And this image really encapsulates how we worked, whereby we would sketch and the designers would gather around and sometimes share ideas, try to solve the problems of another designer, even though we would sign the projects under our own names, but we help each other problem solve as well, or try to improve each other's designs. And that was a really nice way of working with designers from different parts of the world. And then this was the first product that I designed for Ariake, which is called the Ariake chair in indigo wood. We also introduced like certain culture-specific finishes like indigo, because indigo is very connected with Japan, with the indigo plant. And we use sumi ink to color the black furniture as well, which is a Japanese calligraphic ink. So we would have, yeah, I mean, this working together with the craftsmen over 1 week, every time we have the workshops, all the designers are spending time together. It built a kind of fellowship, a brotherhood, you would speak, between the craftsmen and the designers. And most of the designers of Ariake and myself, we know the craftsmen by name. So when we go back to the factory every 2 years, we know who is making the upholstery by name, who's making the cushions, or who's making the particular part of the woodwork, and who's doing the weaving. And I think it shows through as well in the collection that everything is very harmonized, even though they are designed by different designers, but there is a way that they all work well together. So they're eclectic, but still very compatible together. Yeah. So this is a chest of drawers that I designed for them. This is a nesting table, nesting coffee table that I designed for Ariake. And this is a console table and dining table. And today Ariake is being sold. This is a washi cabinet with hinoki wood. Ariake is being sold in more than 20 countries around the world. So their dreams of exporting to Singapore actually got a lot bigger over the years. And we have shown their products in Copenhagen, in Milan, in Stockholm, and I helped to plan the global exhibitions and try to get them the best venues for the budget that they have. And also get the right photographers and stylists to style their exhibitions. This was in Stockholm in 2018, our first European exhibition. So it was the story is funny because basically with the budget that they had for that year, I figured that we needed a free venue. So I was asking, how is it possible that we can get a free venue in Stockholm? So, and one of the designers that came for the workshop, Staffan, he said, I know somebody who might have an idea where to get a free venue. So he called this journalist, Hanna Nova at Residence Sweden, Residence Magazine. And he asked Hanna, I'm at this, we're doing this workshop in Japan and we need a free venue for next year's Stockholm Design Week. So she said, okay, I know a guy who's renovating his house and I think you could probably use it for free. So it's actually a former Mexican ambassador's residence in Östermalm, which is a really central area of Stockholm. And he agreed to loan the space to us for free for our exhibition. And this, up till today, is one of our most successful exhibitions in terms of the visuals and in terms of the social media impact. And all the designers also remember all the sweat we put in to help the brand get off the ground. And this was our third exhibition in Stockholm at the National Archive. This time the brand already kind of took off and had a bit more budget, so we rented the National Archive of Sweden for this exhibition. It was a 500 square meter venue, and it was just before COVID. This was in 2020, February. And it was a really beautiful show that many people still remember today. And yeah, this image really sums up the spirit of Ariake, the owners, the designers, all working together to create furniture from Japan for the global market. Both Japanese designers as well as international designers. So for me, craft stands for the whole idea of what it means to be human, and that matters. This is a quote from Glenn Adamson, a curator from the US, who writes a lot about craft and these related topics. And that was why I started Origin Made when I moved to Portugal. Origin Made is a brand I started with my wife, Sherry, in 2019. And this is where we work in my studio in Portugal, and this is one of our carpenters that we work with. So I went to Portugal on a vacation in 2014 when I was still dating Sherry, and we felt that it was a really interesting place. On our vacation, I brought her to visit cork factories, wood factories, ceramic factories. My idea of a vacation, maybe not exactly hers, but I've realized that, it was fascinating to see beautiful landscapes and residential areas, and then you have a small factory popping up in the middle of houses where people live, or in the middle of farms. And I thought that I could do something good there. working with these small industries and craftsmen, medium-sized factories as well are available. If we eventually are able to scale up, we can also work with some of the bigger factories. So like João Lorenzo is one of these craftsmen that is firing with barro preto, which is a very old technique, using firewood and soil to fire the ceramics in an earth kiln. And I worked with him to create these pieces that are much more contemporary in shape, but using this ancient technique to fire ceramics. And then Maria Adelina, she's like one of the last few weavers. There used to be a big weaving factory in Paços Ferreira, which is a furniture town of Portugal. But there is a lot of them retired or after the factory got shut down. And she's one of the few that everybody goes to for weaving. And we worked with her to make these stools called the weaver's stool. And we also did a chair called the weaver's chair. So the reason why I call it the weaver's chair and the weaver's stool is because when I was designing it, I was also thinking of how to make it like easier to weave, so to have less interlocking in and outs, because that causes a lot of shoulder injuries and hand injuries, and it also takes a lot of time. So by making something more contemporary, but at the same time cutting down the weaving time, we are able to also help her to maximize her time, and both the designer as well as the craftsman can maximize their time and value on the product. And when you make a design more contemporary also, sometimes the customer is willing to pay more for something that is more contemporary and minimal as opposed to something that looks very traditional and intricate, which is the irony actually, because something traditional and intricate actually takes a lot longer time to weave. This is another chair that we made with her with just a coil weaving around the armrest, like a bicycle handle. And this is with Carlos Barbosa, one of our wood craftsmen. And yeah, I mean, he was one of the first to congratulate me when he knew about this President's Design Award. And we grow together as well, both our businesses, his company and ours. So this is some of the things he made for us. These mirrors. It's a wood turner that we use to make our objects. You can see here sculptures that is semi-functional. You could use to put jewelry, but you could also use it as tabletop sculptures. These are called void sculptures. And actually, this is one of our best sellers. At the beginning, when we first designed it, like we were a bit insecure of thinking whether people would buy them, but actually it turned out that they sell really well. And then we also make lamps. We use natural materials like stone and wood to make lamps. This is a wall sconce called Nest, and a plinth called a monolith plinth. So I tried to make craft more contemporary, and at the same time give a new aesthetic to Portuguese crafts, to Mediterranean craft. This is Coliseo pedestals with travertine stone and ash wood. And flan plinth. This is a ceramic plinth that could be used as a side table. And this is a monumental table, which is using rattan as well as wood. So there must be a better way to make the things we want, a way that doesn't spoil the rain, sky, or the land. I mean, even Paul McCartney knows this. So as designers, I think it's really important that we knows this. And so when I design, sometimes I also try to factor in sustainability into my projects. And Sahara for Abstracta is one of them, which is a cork acoustic panel that we design. And using recycled cork from Portugal, a Swedish company, I connected them so that they could distribute these panels that we designed. And you could rotate the panels, you could mount them in different ways. It's a modular system. And this acts as a sound diffuser to improve the acoustics of our spaces. And you can clean it with disinfectants as well. And Quiet Lines was a collection we did with B&B Italia, where all the leather covers are removable with Velcro. And also you can see that there is exposed screws on this collection. We deliberately did that so that it's circular and you can actually recycle the parts really easily, or replace a certain component if a leg that gets damaged, or if you want to replace the leather cover. So even for a high-end brand like B&B Italia, they are agreeable to expose the screws if it actually serves a function of circularity, of more sustainability. And the collection does sell well. And one thing I also believe is that to have art in our furniture, to infuse our furniture with a form of artistic quality, sculptural qualities, and that makes our furniture more emotional and more emotive. Like these vases we did for Aldo, Copenhagen, with glass. These are the 3D printed models we made. And then eventually they are blown in Turkey. And this is the final end result of the glass vases. And the last project is the cyclade tables. Second last project, sorry. So I was inspired by the works of Isamu Noguchi and his sculptures, and thinking of how to use voids and use negative spaces in functional ways. And I found that we could actually use it as a way to collage our tables, to create new functions and new hierarchies. So I sketched these ideas of like having plants coming out from the grooves. You could nest the table against a lamp or other furniture. And then we made these cardboard prototypes in our office. And in the end, I showed the concept to Herman Miller, and they really liked it. So from a simple idea and very crude mock-ups, we were able to get a sense of whether this idea could really be something or not. And then eventually we made some 3D models and we shared a presentation of them. And then they told me that we needed to enlarge the hole of these tables. And I said, why? Why do we need such a big hole? They said that because in the US, when you have a hole in a furniture, it needs to be bigger than the diameter of a child's head. And I said, why would a child get into a table? But the moment the prototypes were delivered to my home, my own son climbed into the table like in 5 seconds. So I sent this photo to the WhatsApp chat group of Herman Miller, and they told me, they were laughing. They said, like, yeah, your son would be stuck if we didn't enlarge the hole. Like, we told you so. And then we did also a glass bowl so that you could have a storage function if you wanted for the table. Yeah, and these were the final shots of the table. And the last project is the Luva sofa for Herman Miller, which basically I was inspired when I'm trying to say that, like, when I say beauty can be coaxed out of ugliness, it means that sometimes we are not only just inspired by beautiful things. My dad had this chair in his house for the longest time. It's a favorite of my son and my dad. And I always told him, like, you should get rid of this chair. It's super ugly. But then my son says, no, but it's really comfortable. Don't tell Kong Kong to throw it away. So I thought, okay, I must be able to design something better than that is just as comfortable but more beautiful. So I was inspired by the boxing glove, the Japanese futons, and then I started sketching these ideas during COVID. I remember it was like Christmas of 2020 during the lockdowns. And also thinking of how it could be modular as well. And then eventually the sketches got more defined, and I was thinking how it could, open up, have a backrest, that you could then sit in different positions. And then I showed it to Herman Miller, and I was really lucky. 2 projects with them, and they said, how do you know exactly what we were looking for? And it was kind of serendipitous, and they agreed to start prototyping them in Italy with their suppliers. And this was some of the early prototypes. And then I had to go down to make some changes, to draw with the marker the lines that we wanted, and testing with different user groups. Basically different executives of Herman Miller who were of different shapes and sizes. And then also defining where to have creases, where not to have creases, where to have the dimples. So really sculpting the design on the spot together with the craftsmen of the Italian upholstery craftsmen until we did like 7 prototypes until we reached the final end result we wanted. Yeah, and finally, this was when we signed off on the night, the final night where we managed to finish everything and sign off the collection before the launch. We were sitting together with the Italian factory owners. And the photography of the collection was actually done in my living room. as well. Here you can see in Porto. They came over to shoot. And the deal was that I would get the sofa and the tables for free. So I wouldn't charge them a location fee. Yeah, and I had this idea of like putting a goldfish in the bowl, and they said like, that's a really good idea. So they sent someone to the market to buy a pair of goldfish for the photo shoot. Yeah. Yeah, and if you are interested to see any of the furniture that I've designed, Space Furniture has B&B Italia Quiet lines, and the Herman Miller products are sold at Extra. And Grafang has our Ariake products as well. And yeah, with that, I conclude my presentation.
Thank you very much, Gabriel, for sharing your stories and your projects. He is definitely somebody who lives and breathes design. We will be hearing from our Design of the Year 21 Carpenter, and representing 21 Carpenter is architect Richard Hassell, founding director at WOHA Architects. So WOHA is an award-winning architectural practice known for its biocentric and systems thinking approach to design. With degrees from the University of Western Australia and the RMIT University, Richard has held academic roles and currently serves as the global advisor to the UN Environment Programme. WOHA's projects integrate nature, community and resilience into the urban fabric, exemplified by landmark developments like the Met in Bangkok and Kampong Admiralty in Singapore. Their work has earned prestigious accolades, including the Aga Khan Award, the RIBA Lubetkin Prize, and the CTBUH Best Tall Building Worldwide. So now let us put our hands together to welcome architect Richard as he shares his story with us.
Thank you very much. And I feel like mine's such a narrow focus after seeing Gabriel's so many interesting projects. So 21 Carpenter is a little shop house really close to our office, and it was actually one of the reasons we took on the project was it was 50 meters down a laneway, and thought it would be really fun. Actually, hearing Gabriel talk about working in the factory, it's a little bit like that with architecture. It's getting increasingly a desk-based activity where you somehow always want to go to site, but there's never time to go to site because of all the meetings. So this was really a chance to be on site and enjoy the construction process. It's an interesting building. 1934 commissioned, 1936 completed. And it's quite an unusual building because it was in the 1930s, and that was the decade of the Great Depression, a lot of financial disruption. So there are not that many 1930s shop houses in Singapore, and for that reason it had special controls in the Circular Road Conservation area. Most of the buildings you only have to keep the front 7 meters, but in this case the entire roof and the side block was conserved as well. Very early on it had been plastered over, so in fact in the URA conservation guidelines it hadn't even mentioned the Shanghai plaster, but when we did a bit of research with the oldest photos we saw it had the Shanghai plaster but had no real idea what condition it would be in, so most of the photos were in this condition where it was plastered smooth and painted, but very excited to discover that the original Shanghai plaster was well preserved underneath the paint. We found sort of different views of it. Here it's right up in the top right corner, you can see it, behind the market. And unusual in that it stayed in the hands of the original family for almost its entire existence, which was also why it was quite well preserved in its original details. It had been tenanted out for a long time, but the original family had basically kept it almost unchanged for the 70, 80 years of its existence. And it was interesting that it was a remittance company. We didn't know much about remittance. I'd heard the word, but we really got interested in it. And I have to say, our president of Singapore is so well informed. Even though we'd spent so many years working on this, he seemed to know more about remittance than we did in the brief few minutes we spoke to him at the awards ceremony, and told us about a remittance museum in Swatow in China, where this building is actually one of the very key remittance houses in Singapore, although not so well known in Singapore as some of the other ones. And for instance, in the archives, there's not so many remittance letters from this one, but they're evidently all in Swatow, which was interesting to find out, and would have been good to find out at the beginning of the project. But our idea was really that it would be interesting to look at this, because as we researched, we found these really beautiful stories that every remittance letter carried a little note home. And these notes home were often very poignant and talked about people away from home trying to make their fortune, leaving home and suffering, but then full of hopes and dreams. And we thought that was really quite a beautiful story that was resonant to us. So it was almost like the building was this kind of gateway for hopes and dreams of Singapore migrants. So that was one sort of aspect of the design, this idea of it being this portal for all these letters and writing, and all the records are, a lot of writing. When we looked at Singapore in the 1930s as well, actually realized that Chinatown was it's a wall of text. I mean, you hardly see any architecture. It's just an environment of signage. And we thought that was really interesting. Also, maybe something to think about, so that the Chinatown as conserved today is very architectural. It's very pure, but quite different, in fact, from the streetscape that you would get in times past. And so we thought it could be fun in a way to think of the expression of our new extension as somehow referring a little bit to this environment formed by text and writing. So this was our little concept model that in some ways the building is composed of like a stack of letters, or is wrapped in text. And also that, because we knew our new extension was bigger, we wanted to wrap it in a way that broke down the scale and made it more like an assemblage of smaller elements. So this is the final expression of the facade. So we wanted to abstract the text. We didn't want it to be very too eye-catching where you couldn't stop reading the building, but it gives a sort of feeling of writing. So we sort of analysed Chinese vertical text and Western written text and came up with this little abstract language. So the Chinese text is sort of stacked vertical squares, while the English text is horizontal circles. And so the extension, although it's quite tall compared to the original building, we wanted it to almost feel like it was pieces of the original building that had been assembled, a bit like a sort of Jenga addition to it. The other aspect of the facade was to create a kind of texture that worked with the Shanghai plaster and yet still be contemporary. So this perforated metal had a kind of scale and fineness and texture to it that didn't overwhelm the delicate details of the old building. And the Jenga idea also sort of gave us the compositional freedom to create this big hole in the back of the building, which we wanted to do so we could bring light and air to the back of the old shop house block. And so we, despite the fact that it's doubled in GFA, we still have all windows to every room, which is actually quite rare in shop house redevelopments because of the depth of the block and the size of the and the pressure to have so many rooms. Other little things we did, like just shaping and kinking it. So once we had this idea of composition, it was sort of freed us up to play with each block in a little bit that gave a little bit of air around the old block. So here we chamfered the corner to expose the gable of the side block. And here you can see the rear windows getting a view to the garden and light and air, despite the fact that the GFA on site doubled. And here's how we sort of buried the text and messages from these letters. So we came up with 22 phrases that we extracted from remittance letters, ones that were really felt a little bit poetic and communicated emotion across the years. As a business traveller, I hate travelling and sitting in a hotel by myself. And so all these things about being sort of sad and lonely and away from home, I thought, oh, that's quite nice if a contemporary traveller realises they're feeling a very similar emotion to a migrant worker almost 100 years ago. And this link across the decades we thought was really important. So we buried these messages in little pieces around the hotel. So it was a kind of idealised a bit of a Where's Wally thing, that you maybe notice one and then you start looking for more and then you discover them as you move around the hotel. And every guest room there's a little poem hidden in the screen, and it's quite nice that like in the morning sunlight it's projected onto the blinds. So this one is looking at the sea, the ship is leaving. From a technical conservation point of view, it was quite a challenging project. It's a concrete framed project, but upon revealing the structure, it was a very strange concrete frame. And Rambol, Hussein's team were tearing their hair because none of it really made any sense. If you look at the top of the building, the structural frame in the corner, it's like a madman did it. Like it's a multiple transfer structure for quite a tiny little corner of the building. And then it turned out that a lot of the structure was sort of pinned together out of precast elements rather than being cast concrete joints. So we had to, in the end, completely cover all the concrete with all the structure with steel, a new steel structure, which had to bring all the loads down onto new pile caps that bridged the old pile caps. So what we thought was going to be, because normally when you have brick and timber shop house, you go, oh no, the structure is going to be terrible. This one was concrete. We thought, oh, that's going to be easy, and it was even harder than a brick and timber one. So this is an example where we had to sheath the old concrete with steel, but we carefully cut the old brickwork and inserted the steel and then patched it back so that we didn't compromise the space inside. Working with Studio Lapis, who were fantastic, and Wang Hin came up with all kinds of interesting techniques to preserve the building, because we decided not to really touch the Shanghai plaster and replace it, but just to restore it and repair it. So this, for instance, is micro-grouting. So these are little like elastic band syringes putting at low pressure grouting behind some of the loose Shanghai plaster to stabilize it. So I certainly learnt many new techniques myself. Other aspects, very gently removing the paint and finding many traces of old signage. So we left very faint, ghostly signage marks as a kind of pentimento sort of thing. So you can see the layers of history without it distracting from the beauty of the original design. So here's where this was a bit like having a facial. So the building there's a softening agent applied on the paint and then plastic applied on top, leaving it for sort of overnight, and then the plastic is peeled off and very gently like scrubbed with a brush, and then very low water pressure to remove the paint. So it took almost 2 years in the end to gently remove all the facade. There were lots of interesting details. So this is a plaque in the facade, sort of interesting with a kind of Art Deco medallion. We're showing this sort of excitement for modernity. The other interesting thing about this 1936 building is this wall of timber windows. Typically before this, you would just get a pair of casement windows. In the 1940s, you got steel frame windows that would give you a wall of glass, so the modernist ones. So this building is really right at that cusp where doing a wall of windows, but still doing them as hardwood timber is quite unusual. All the old signage was repaired with craftsmen. So these are unusually too, after almost 80 years that the original signage was still intact because the family still owned it. But it was a little bit damaged, so here we're touching it up to restore it to its original crispness. And the Shanghai plaster, I mean, if you look at it, it's really interesting. There's a lot of mouldings, details, curves. So to see these edge details with such fine striations is really unusual. And interesting, the little medallion in the balcony is the remittent house name. So the Chai Hua Seng, CHS, is arranged into a $ in the medallion on the facade. So that's really a cute detail that's still intact. We also tried to, like, this railing obviously didn't comply with BCA's requirements anymore, and it was a real struggle to keep it. The first proposal by the engineer was to add a whole lot of steel to stiffen it. In the end, we convinced BCA we could separate the two requirements, one for the loading, where we provided a new stronger railing behind. You can see we've just painted it in a cream paint, so it's not very easy to see it. So that takes the horizontal loading. Then the gaps in the old railing were okay for the maximum gaps, and then we added also a new upstand setback behind the railing for the prevention of things rolling off and hitting people. So it took a while to get it approved, but I think it was really worth it because you basically see the original railing in its condition and using paint. So the old railing is a silver grey. The new stuff we did in a cream paint, and so we separated the old and the new. Other elements we did, so there were a lot of timber joists from the project that we salvaged, and these we used in many ways in the interiors. Here they're used in the reception desk. The floor as well, we decided to use them as an end grain, like an old cutting board. We sliced up the joists into slices, so you really can see maybe more of the joist than you would ever see before, because we're seeing all the internal grain. That idea was the courtyard is a little bit, the lobby feels like a courtyard, so it's kind of a cobblestone courtyard feel, but using the joist from the old building. Various railings around the project, so our internal railings for the interiors, the window frames and the entrance door handle, these are all recycled joists from the old building. The window mouldings, there was one piece left of the old shop front that was found behind, sort of built into a wall. So we used the moulding design from that to extrapolate it to the new shop front. All the timber boards we kept and put back together using epoxy to fill all the cracks and splits and things. Then just to move through the drawing. So you see the section here, how we were trying to deal with the new bulk in a way that felt appropriate to the scale. So by just chamfering the underneath of it, we could bring light and cross ventilation through the courtyard, but also picking up the pitch roof kind of dimensions. And so it's like the old building has been abstracted, pulled apart, and then put together as a kind of Jenga-like assembly. From a streetscape point of view, we're very keen to have active street front, and it was quite a struggle dealing with the substation and the parking and everything, but we worked really hard to get that all on the back lane. The kitchen we pushed into a little corner and then made an open kitchen along the shop front, and that enabled us to get really 100% active shop front along the street. And then, of course, not just having glass, but to have it activated, so the restaurant Keys is located along it. disabled ramps that we needed to provide for universal access in the 5-foot-way. At first, were kind of tricky because we're thinking, oh, the ramps are going up higher than the floor level. In the end, we stepped the floor level inside, and it made a really nice kind of amphitheater effect in the restaurant, where the chef is like on stage at one end, the lobby looking through is on the other. So it was one of those examples where at first a challenge that the level seemed rather awkward, in the end became part of the experience of the space. So these are some of the interiors in the restaurant that we did. The artist here, Charu and Wahab, is a Singapore artist, and he was also doing artwork about migrant labour who were the remittance house customers. So we thought it would be really nice to commission that, and he did us 2 very beautiful paintings for the restaurant. So here's an example where it's stepping up to the chef and stepping up to the lobby, and so the levels in the end work to make the whole place feel a lot more interactive. And in the lobby itself, so some of the furniture we designed, which was inspired by sort of 1930s art moderne, Asian-inspired furniture. When I first came to Singapore, I got all my furniture from the Salvation Army, and there was a lot of this teak art moderne furniture that you could get very cheaply, so there's a little bit of a hint of that in all the furniture. Here's where you step in the lobby and you look up, you see the new extension, you see the back of the old block, you see the little sky garden, so it's a sort of great place to understand the whole project when you arrive there. Oh, and an artwork by Heman Chong there that it makes a big impact too. In the rooms, we wanted the old block and the new block rooms to feel consistent, but to work. And being a shop house, everything is crooked. Like every room has got a tapering wall, and it's a different shape. So we needed a kind of kit of parts interiors that we could put together in different ways, and that would feel appropriate in both the old rooms and the new rooms. So these are, this is an example of the room looking into the back sky garden, where it still has a window and a nice view. So just some views around the hotel. The little sky garden on level 3, which is on top of the substation and the parking. And then the new block, which is where we got a little bit of repetition, but still tapering rooms because of the block. But it's quite nice that you get views to the CBD and Marina Bay Sands and the Singapore River. Then right on the top, we managed to squeeze a little swimming pool and a function room and a terrace. More of the timber joists that we used there in the ceiling of it, up in the attic. But you get a really great view over the city, and a kind of nice ending to the story that the international finance, which started in the little remittance house as a small family business, eventually the remittance house merged and became another bank and was finally part of OCBC. So you sort of see the ending of the story when you go up to the roof, which is quite a nice spatial, temporal kind of narrative. So that is the final slide, I think, on the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard, for sharing with us on 21 Carpenter. I know for sure the next time I pass by that area, I'm going to be looking at that building in a totally different light. And I'm sure that will be the same for many of you here as well. I'd like to introduce our next 2 speakers to you, and they would be Ms. Rucha Khanderia as well as Mr. Marc Cremades from Mandai Wildlife Group. They represent Bird Paradise, one of this year's Design of the Year recipients. Rucha is the head of design for Bird Paradise, and Marc is a founding member and team lead of Mandai Wildlife Group's attractions development team. They have both played key roles in shaping the next generation of wildlife parks here in Singapore. Their work integrates immersive guest experiences, innovative attraction design, ecological sensitivity, and top-tier animal care while coordinating across multidisciplinary consultants throughout the project. So let us put our hands together to welcome Rucha and Marc, please.
Good morning, everyone. My role is and Rucha, sorry, my role is a bit specific. When I see Gabriel putting fishes in the tables, then I'm coming. Keeping animals in captivities today is a very strong regulation, international regulations. We can't do what we want, including for goldfish. And as you know, in Singapore, the plan is to reach the top of the range. So our expectation was to create something even better than the current regulations. On top of this, we had Jurong Bird Park, 50 years of anniversary, the first animal attraction in Singapore. So it was a very big responsibility of the legacy of the Jurong Bird Park. Very challenging for us. So we try something, a visions, a good place for the animal to be. Yeah, I think it was the main direction for the design, a nice place for the bird to be, a nice place to work as well. Mandai is 1,600 people. The bird park alone is more than 200 workers. We get up to 10,000 visitors a day. So the challenges, the ergonomy is quite high as well. We will go through now a quick presentations. We have other opportunity to go to details. Unfortunately, we will not go to the detail of the design. It's too many things to cover, 17 hectares to cover. But we hope through the presentation led by Rucha, he will help you to understand the challenges and what we're trying to achieve for this project. Rucha, over to you.
Okay, thank you. So Marc and I are part of Mandai Wildlife Group, the in-house attractions development team. Our role is threefold. It's to come up with the vision of the new park, as well as lead coordination across the different multidisciplinary consultants, and make sure that the vision is translated into the execution as well. Our key consultants are RSP. Wikwok is here as well today. So we're going to try and present a very quick overview of the park. As Marc said, it's quite an extensive site. And we always say there's a thesis, about 400-page presentation if you really want to go into all of the details. But we've sort of made a very short one for you guys today. Okay, so just a quick overview of the Mandai Wildlife Reserve and the rejuvenation project. As you know, the Bird Paradise has opened up in 2023, and that's the main subject of presentation today. But overall, the Mandai Wildlife Reserve area comprises of about 64 hectares, of which about 15.6 hectares are dedicated to the public areas. So we have the Mandai Wildlife West and the Mandai Wildlife East that are the new public areas. New parks like the Rainforest Wild and the indoor attractions are slowly opening up as well as an eco-friendly resort that's opened up earlier this year. So overall, the project has been designed based on three key principles: integration, inclusion, and sustainability. And I'll touch upon some of these as I go ahead. As a quick overview, Bird Paradise is about 3,500 birds, over 400 species. We have 10 zones, including 8 large walk-through aviaries, a penguin exhibit, and a wing sanctuary, which is more of a sanctuary for some of the very rare and threatened birds. On an average, a visitor needs at least 3 to 4 hours to go through the park. As Marc mentioned, we started, because this is essentially a relocation project of the Jurong Bird Park to Mandai to co-locate all of the wildlife attractions. The Jurong Bird Park has a memorable legacy in the mind of Singaporeans, conceived by Dr. Goh Keng Swee, opened in January 1971. It was located at Jurong to act as a warning against excessive pollution. And it was meant to be open to all and all at times. One of the largest bird parks in the world with a unique collection. So we started with all of this as something that we needed to continue in terms of the legacy. But at the same time, it displayed animals in single species aviaries. This is something we wanted to do away with. We wanted to create large walk-through aviaries that provide ample space for free flight for the birds, breaking away from single species in individual cages and instead focus on habitats and environmental education.
Yeah, what's missing in the Jurong Bird Park, it was the interactions with the animals and the habitat. To introduce the main concern now to Mandai is conservations. To understand and to introduce the conversation aspect, it was very important to illustrate how the habitat is so specific and so special for the animals. So with the 10 habitats, we're trying to illustrate a combination of interactions to explain to the visitor very simply how strong is this interconnection and how all the animals are interdependent to the habitat. To do conservation is to save the habitat. You just save the habitat, the animal will be conserved.
We also wanted to mix compatible species together so that they have ample interaction opportunities as you would in a natural environment. So we started with the vision of the bird paradise. Our goal was to create naturalistic habitats that are inspired by real-world biomes, and they would be dramatically different landscapes from each other for guests to discover sort of birds in a multi-layered, intimate, and interactive experience, as well as be enthralled by the free-flying birds displaying their natural behaviors. So we wanted to foster the natural behaviors of the birds and promote their well-being. At the same time, the habitats are visually spectacular and provide immersive and memorable experiences for the guests. So we started with this as our key guiding vision. A quick bird's eye view of the bird paradise. The intention is that the large walk-through aviaries provide enough space. So we have collectively about 8 to 10 hectares just dedicated to the aviary spaces, as you can see from this. Okay, I'll spend a little bit more time on the overall master plan. So at the top, you see where it says West Node. That's where the public area. That's the public area, completely free for all visitors. This is where the shuttle buses, the taxis, all of coach buses, etc., would drop people off, and they would then go to a landscape deck and travel towards the entrance, which is shown as that wing structure at the top. Let me try to bring up the pointer. Yeah, here. All of the dotted red lines that you see are the large walk-through aviaries. So we have 8 of these aviaries. The amphitheater is also a netted aviary. The rest of the aviaries are all themed after different biomes of the world. The idea is when you walk into that space with, let's say the birds are from Africa, you really feel like you're in an Central African birding site. So the landscape, the scenography, the thematic environment, all of that has been meticulously designed for you to really feel as part of that environment and be immersed in it. We tried to locate the aviaries based on their habitats where we found natural landscapes. So for example, the rainforest aviary is selected to be at places where there was large mature clusters of trees. Some of the larger buildings are situated where we had impacted land. So we started with a site that had a lot of vegetation, but it was a secondary forest. So we had a lot of fruiting trees, durians and rambutans and all of that. So we tried to locate habitats that were suitable to what was already on the site. Some of the larger buildings are located where there was land impacted. This area, as you see, used to be the Mandai Orchid Garden in terracing. And so this is where we located our penguin cove against the terrain, such that you would not be disturbed by having a 2 to 3 story building suddenly in the middle of a forested site. Similarly, the back of house is also at the south, also on impacted land. There is a perimeter service road that goes around the entire park, which allows the operations to continue uninterrupted. One of the big moves for the Mandai Rejuvenation Project is a wildlife bridge that has been constructed across the Mandai Lake Road that stitches back to the upper portion of the CCNR to the lower portion of the CCNR. And what Bird Paradise has done is set aside 3 hectares of land on the western boundary to connect and also to provide primary eco-connectivity for the native fauna. Okay.
This one is, we have a buffer roughly of 35 to 50 meters around the bird park to make sure the sound of the bird doesn't disturb the life of the wildlife too. You have a bird from South America making call, it will disturb our native animal too. So all these things have been studied as well. And the noisy birds close to the more impacted land as well. So as all designers or architects, it look like a very normal master plan. But he have been for 1 year. We start with CPG actually in 2013. It's a global approach. You will get 10 different experiences with a minimum impact on infrastructure. So you go to one word to another word, you should not see the fence of the aviary, you should not see the difference of the experience, you should have a very smooth experience. And if you change your mind, you don't have only one route, you should have more than one route. You are here for 1 hour, 2 hours, or you are going for the restaurant only, so you have to create a fast track to go to the restaurant and come back. So it has been a very complex. We will go through now quickly just to show you the complexity of the design.
Yeah, so the primary route throughout the park is in the yellow color. It's the primary route that goes through all of the different aviaries and connects to all of the large gathering spaces. There are secondary paths that are more of a varied experience in terms of trails or suspension bridges that allow for a more adventurous routes. And of course, there's also a tram that serves to connect from the entrance plaza to the central plaza, bringing the visitors deeper into the park. This serves as a shortcut for those visitors that are on a time crunch, who would want to come in, maybe see 1 or 2 attractions, see the show, and then leave. As we mentioned, inclusion is an important principle of the project. So the site was a very hilly site. At the middle of the site, we have a terrain, a ridge here with steep slope going down on this side and a gentle slope going down towards the southwest. And that's why we've designed the pathways to be universal design. And that's why also you see them sort of circling around and routing around the mature clusters of the trees in order to achieve the gentle gradient, the resting areas, etc., for people with strollers or people in wheelchair. So these are some considerations that have gone in terms of accessibility of the park. We have to remember the main target demographic for the park is families with young children and also 3G families. So we did need to make sure that for those guests, the park is fully accessible. In addition to this, we also worked very early stages with the capacity and throughput consultants to make sure that the spaces that we have designed are large enough to host big crowds on peak days, as well as provide a sheltered link all the way deep into the park. And visitor amenities are distributed throughout the park as well. Okay, so in terms of an overall design approach, we focused on talking about local heritage and native rainforest at our entrance plaza, the forest corridor, and central plaza. These are spaces outside the aviaries, and we focus on Singapore rainforest heritage here. Within the aviaries, we talk about habitats and the bird behaviors. We want to focus on the natural behaviors of the birds. And then we have interconnecting spaces that are entry portals to the aviaries, which we call transitions or interpretive hubs. This is where we talk about the unique features of the birds, right? I have some visuals later on to share with you. Okay, so the entrance plaza, the forest corridor, and the central plaza, there's an overarching forest trail narrative. Right from the early stage, there was an EIA, environmental impact assessment done. And some of the animal movement and corridors were charted out as part of that study. And we wanted to retain them. So as you can see, the major primary connectivity is through the buffer zone. But through the park also, we have maintained secondary eco-connectivity. And in fact, we have selected fauna-attracting plants within those spaces to attract the native birds as well?
The site, when we get the site was green, but it was mainly invasive species and exotic species. So we plant just for the bird park, 7,000 trees above 5 meters, all native forest. The objective, as just described Rucha, is to recreate an eco-connectivity for our own wildlife. So we select, with the help of NParks, we select 25 key species, well known in Singapore to attract local wildlife. And we make sure between all our infrastructure, the animal has space to live and cross the CCNR or even the eco bridge.
Yeah. The entrance of the bird paradise is intended to be a homage to sort of the dynamism of a bird's flight. So the winged entrance canopy actually comprises of several entry functions like ticketing, guest services, retail, a small F&B, and a learning center. Under this sort of outstretched wing, we wanted to create that sort of fluid movements of a bird's flight. The entrance plaza hosts a waterfall that provides a sort of calming ambience as guests come in and sort of orient themselves to go deeper into the park. We will focus more on the habitats today. In the interest of time, we've selected 4 to go through. We're going to go through the Heart of Africa, which is the recreation of a Central African tropical rainforest, Wings of Asia, the agricultural Southeast Asia, Crimson Wetlands, South American wetlands, and the Penguin Cove, which is a subantarctic recreation. Okay, so a quick overview of the Nyungwe Forest, Heart of Africa. The collection here intended was large, colorful forest birds so it's mainly a canopy experience. It's inspired by the forested valleys of continental Africa and the birds that live among those giant trees. So the ambience here is that of a dense forest with sparkling streams bubbling through them. The key for us was to bring visitors all the way up into the canopy, so a gentle elevated walkway brings people up, and then there is a loop of suspension bridges, adventurous trail, and even a bird viewing tower, as you can see from the physical model here. We have tried to use some of the design images today for the presentation rather than real photos. I think you can go and see the park and experience it for yourself, but we wanted to highlight some of the design considerations that have gone in. We've created a large artificial sycamore tree that sort of anchors you as soon as you come in, and you feel like you're going to this grand old tree.
The rainforest is all the continent. The rainforest for normal visitor look the same. So the idea was at the introductions, you see your beautiful rainforest, the rainforest we have in Singapore, with strange animals that you've never seen before in our forest. And in opposition as well, like everybody have seen a grey, African grey in the small cage. But nobody have seen an African grey flying around or interacting in the trees or with other birds. So we are trying to, number one, return a bird to his own habitat. Number two, you have some familiarity with the forest. You are quite confident to circulate in the forest, but you will see some very strange and very beautiful birds.
Studies were done to see what would be the optimal way to balance the suspension bridges so that we don't disturb some of the ground cover, and also creating a artificial bee-eaters cliff. These are sandbanks in the cavities of which some of these birds, such as carmine bee-eaters, nest. We have recreated that, and of course there is a nest box at the end of that cavity, with a CCTV camera also for our keepers to monitor the breeding period.
You design the habitat mainly for the bird first, make sure the natural behavior will happen. Then the second time we bring the visitors the closest we can to make sure the visitors will see what they're supposed to see, or the very low chance to see in the real nature.
So throughout the park, actually, for all of the exhibits, we have tried to sort of also include art and tactile interactives that help to tell the story deeper to children and also in terms of an aesthetic way. So I've included this slide, but actually for all of the habitats, we have similar art and cultural elements throughout distributed.
Like you have seen on the two previous presentations, culture is part of our world. So even in nature, and you have always a footprint from humans everywhere, including on the very deep forest. So it was important from the beginning to integrate human culture in each habitat.
Okay, next we come to the core group Wings of Asia. This habitat is a way to highlight that even though it's man-made, some of these landscapes do provide a refuge to some of the migratory birds. So this is a tranquil space of the bamboo forests and paddy fields, things that you would find very easily in Southeast Asian landscape, with serene terraced hills and iconic Asian birds using the water terraces.
The idea was we don't need a segregations between forests with animals and human worlds. If we live accordingly to what the animal needs, we can live and survive together. We can take resources from the land, we can grow our own rice, and the animal will take space and make our life more sustainable.
So again, studies were undertaken to create that terracing through the park. We actually chose a site where there was a lot more fruiting trees, so it kind of created this agricultural produce ambience from the very beginning. And we also used the diagonal axis to cut through and create where we had the gentle slope coming down to create the water terraces with viewing platforms both at the top and at the bottom of it.
Yeah, you have now in the world, from Western to Australia, people feel that the animals should live somewhere without human, trying to circumvent national parks with no human life. We think then with some specific rule we can live together. So we are trying to integrate, as I said before, human activity, agriculture, sustainable agriculture. You have some art and some beautiful pavilions. Illustration, we are somewhere in Indonesia. I will not say Bali, but between Sumatra and Bali, somewhere. Yeah. And the bird take very quickly the advantage of the site. Yeah. Nesting on the top of the house, take the sculpture to control the situation and the location. Very, very interesting.
The Crimson Wetland offers a journey through the open landscape of the flooded savannas of South America. Here we have lots of colorful, large birds, mainly the color red. That's why it's called Crimson Wetland. The ambience is that of an expansive wetland, bright red flowers peeking through trees and cliffs, and large crimson birds taking off from the water. The pathways are intended to be on the ground or like a boardwalk, and the experience is that of a color red as represented by the birds as well as the plants. We also created a large waterfall as the backdrop. This was sort of our tribute to the Jurong waterfall in the memory of Old Jurong Bird Park.
The inspiration of the word is somewhere in Venezuela for 2 to 3 months. The water level change and you have a very high concentration of red birds. And very, very, very special. So we are trying to recreate this. You come inside and you have all these red spots everywhere, underwater, in the trees, flying around you.
Yep. We actually studied some of the key references in Colombia as for the references for the waterfall, as well as some of the pavilions, as you see, are also inspired by the Ciénaga Grande floating houses, where fishermen sort of had this DIY aesthetic. So that's why some of the pavilions are sort of pink and blue or green and yellow. So we tried to recreate that. One of the key aspects of this aviary is that there is no central column. There are only perimeter columns, and the design is such that it allows for a free movement of the large water birds to be able to fly freely. So in terms of the sort of engineering structure, this was quite a hard feat to achieve. The idea is always that the aviary becomes invisible, and when you go into the aviaries, you are one with the birds and you are in that space going through, and against the sky you do not see the mesh. But in this case, we didn't have even the central columns, which helps to facilitate the movements as well. A little bit about the aviary design considerations. These are sort of large column structures that are at the perimeters that are then propped up by either cables or RHS sections. So just a quick view of how the aviary stitching was done by our very acrobatic Spider-Man. And each of the aviary, there's infrastructure for vehicles to be able to go in and out. There's special back of houses that connect to the larger one in order to facilitate the operations of the park. If we have run out of time, I think I will just skip quickly to the last 3 slides. Okay, so as you go in and out of the different aviaries, the idea is to have, usually in other parks, you would see a double door mesh portal. What we have done is we have created smaller buildings that we call transitions or interpretive hubs, and these talk about different bird features like the colors or the diversity of eggs or feathers. And these provide a respite from the heat because they are air-conditioned spaces. We see lots of people taking a break, taking a quick snack, and they also have lots of tactile interactives for kids. Throughout the park, we have lots of play pockets and play opportunities for kids as well, and digital and tactile interactives. And I think that's sort of the main design elements. Lastly, the sustainable strategies. So as I mentioned, we have eco-connectivity through the park in terms of native fauna and flora. We have also applied solar panels on all the available roofs. The Penguin Cove, which is a Green Mark Platinum non-residential building, uses efficient filtration technology and chillers and energy consumption. We also have buildings that are oriented to reduce the glare as well as induce passive cooling in terms of the layouts. But as I said, it's always a long presentation for Bird Paradise. 20 minutes is very, very difficult. So I'll just leave you with a quick visual of the park.
Thank you very much, Rucha and Marc. The Bird Paradise truly is a very, very large space, and 20 minutes definitely isn't enough. I guess they just have to go and visit Bird Paradise to experience it for themselves. I'd like to move on to the third design of the year, and that's going to be KartaCam 2 by Grab. And representing this project is Mr. Loh Koh Wee from Grab. Koh Wee is a senior design manager for Geo at Grab, where he leads product design for Grab Maps as well as IoT, shaping both industrial and mobile interfaces for the consumer and driver apps used across Southeast Asia. His design philosophy focuses on transforming complexity into refined, intuitive experiences by deeply understanding systems, user needs, as well as technical constraints, and distilling them into what truly serves the user. So now I'd like to invite Koh Wee up to the front to present his little project.
Hello, I'm Koh Wee. I'm a Singaporean. I studied in Temasek Polytechnic Industry Design, and then later on further my studies at the Umeå Institute of Design in Sweden, focusing on software design. And now being in Grab, I realized that I'm connecting the dots because my manager said that since you know the software and the hardware design, can you do something for us, which is the KartaCam 2? Later I'm going to share with you 5 key learnings that you can take away from this forum and internalize. Where I think we spent like 2 years, but I think in this forum, you only learn that in 20 minutes. Okay. So just now we introduced, right, I lead the product design experience across Grab Maps and IoT products, shaping both industry design user interface from Grab consumer app, driver app platform serving on millions of people across 800 cities in Southeast Asia. So today I'm going to share with you, what does it take to build better maps with KartaCam 2. Grab is like an everyday services in Southeast Asia. We serve the consumers, merchants, our drivers. We have the mobility services, deliveries, and financial services. And you might ask, why? Why maps? And also, what does Grab have to do with cameras? Right. So Maps forms the platform where we can deliver efficient, when you book a ride, you can get that like in minutes. So GrabMap powers everyday services for millions of people across over 800 cities in South Asia and beyond. If you open up a Grab app, you realize that there's something called a POI, which is a destination. So we gather information about millions of places to predict and help users select their destination effortlessly. And KartaCam 2 is one of the tools which is able to extract the POI information from the maps. That's why you can see millions of POI. Without these, you can't select any destination. And also routes. Imagine when you allocated, the moment you press the button called book ride, we actually send the information to the cloud. And from there, we connect with the drivers, allocate the drivers, predict the prices. And how do we know, if you look at 4 minutes, right? How do we know it's exactly 4 minutes? So maps play an important role to make sure the driver, right, never miss a turn and efficiently route to your location. Because there are traffic as well, and how long it will take. Beyond that, we have the driver. This is the interface of a driver and the Grab navigation. So the driver app provides like outdoor to indoor guidance for driver, ensuring the most efficient route to help improve their earnings. So how do we track that? In 1 hour, can the driver do multiple deliveries in that to help boost their income and earnings? So this is where the driver, they have to outdoor navigation, then go to a mall, and then where do they get their KFC? And, maps, street imagery is the foundation of mapping in how we build the maps. So this is the 360 imagery built by our KartaCams, to capture the information surrounding you. So if you see something like a word, right, or the Chinese word, right, we extract that POI and create information on it. And if you have been to Jakarta, or you haven't been to Jakarta, you should go to Jakarta. This is like the alleyways of Jakarta, and you have to tighten your legs, make sure you don't bang into any of the stuff. This is like the backyard of people, the true stories of Jakartans living in South Asia. Beyond cars, right, they have bikes, and they use bikes a lot because it beats the traffic jams. More efficient. So this is how it feels. So for me, I have to go through this. So on the left here, right, just give a sense of what it looks like. So in Jakarta, we have other maps player, right, where narrow entrances to neighborhood that other map provider did not. So if you look at the blue lines, right, blue line is basically the street imagery. But if you look at them in a bit of back alleys, these are alleys which is so narrow that other map makers can't get in. If you look on the right-hand side, this is the Grab maps. If you look at the purple lines, right, alleys, main roads, highway, we map it out. So you have like shortcuts, shortest information. So when you collect the maps, what do? You have so many images, what do? Put it on a thumb drive, upload to the cloud? No. On the device itself, right, is kind of a sophisticated. We have HAI processing. We call the AI first mapping. So on device, we collect first. So we have to blur the images of like car plates, images of people, so you don't invade their privacy. On the second part is places, just now I mentioned before. If you look at like a Starbucks, right, okay, immediately we extract that Starbucks, become a POI. The third part is like traffic signs. How do you ensure like drivers are able to pick you up like 2 minutes? So from the road, right, we're able to know like the direction, the road markings on the road, and other road features, stop signs, road access as well. Some places have barriers. The car just can't go inside. So we have this all information so that whenever the driver pick you up, they know exactly where they go. So it's the most efficient platform. So if you look at it, right, from the maps, right, you can see that you actually collect all this information, which way you can turn, which way you can't turn. And then all this information, you don't see it. When you book a ride, you just see 3 minutes. You might be thinking, hey, how you manage to get that? This is the underlying UX behind the server, which you don't see that. So this is like a two-wheel, lady I met in Jakarta. She earned a living to bring their son, feed their family, plan a financial for their family as well. And my job is to make sure her life is better. It's kind of stressful for me as well. Beyond that, running as a business. And that's Indonesia, but in Singapore, what do we do? So Grab mapped over 10 kilometers of road in Tengah in 2024. So we use the proprietary AI mapping technology to update the maps with Tengah evolving network of roads and points of interest to ease residents' concern around the difficulties of navigating roads. Because all the residents who move to Tengah, right, when they press the button, man, it takes such a long time for the cars to come in, or deliveries, man, couldn't figure out like where to go. So we went there to help the residents. And beyond Singapore, okay, we try to partner with other players. In Las Vegas, we mapped like 9,300 kilometers, New York City as well, with our B2B customers. So just like I mentioned, there are 5 key learnings of designing a KartaCam tool. I'm just going to share the first one. When I was designing with a team, right, I think I have to set like an audacious goals for the team. This is one of the reflection I have. Why is it important? Really, beside problem solving or just design another camera, right, really is to inspire the team beyond incremental fix. Like change the bottom, change the casing, change the color. Of course, we can do that, but really instead focus on transformative changes. Let me give you an example. When we were in a team, right, it's quite complicated because there's a hardware and a software, so we have some goals. And one of the learnings I have is, if you believe something that you wanted to do, you try to influence your stakeholders and you make it happen. Otherwise, it is just an idea. Many people have ideas. And my partners, right, there's this design, engineering, product. Great challenges. Engineer would think, can it done within this timeline I was given, because they don't want design to make something too complicated they cannot accomplish. Product will be, just make me a camera. But design will be, okay, I have this user on one side, engineering on the other side as well, on the timeline, budgets, and so on. So here will be, how do we align everybody on a common vision, not just problem solving, but also like inspire them to do something even greater. So this is why design leadership comes in. Like, hey guys, listen up. I think this is a better. And you communicate the ideas across. So communication plays a very, very important role. The second learning is about consider system rather than feature. And I'll give you some examples. To address problems that cannot be solved by fixing a single feature. A lot of times, when you work in a company, you have like, hey, add this feature A, add this feature B, and so on. So in KartaCam 2, we didn't think about that. We think in a different way. And just before that, I'll just show you an example. So this is the first version of this is KartaCam 2, right? This is the first version. We did it because off the shelf didn't work. We bought cameras on the market, but then, after collecting images, we could take out an SD card, copy the files to the computer, upload to the cloud. It's really, really troublesome. So we built something like maybe a 4G will built in inside, it will be better. Maybe built in a Wi-Fi module is better. And these gig mappers is beside deliveries or like mobility job, they can do mapping job. And then one of the operational team came, and without even design involvement and engineering team, they are like, okay, maybe you can take these 4 cameras, because we want to create a 360 images. We stack this up 4 together, mine at the top, and then let them use. Which is a great hack, because you can deliver that out in the market in the shortest possible of time, rather than okay, let's design, takes 4 years. You already lose what you wanted to do for the market. So it's a great hack. And one of the product manager came, or before that story. So, if you look at this, right, I don't even know this happened. Like when they installed the mount, you could open up the motorbike because the oil tank is below. So you got to every day do about that, which is mind-boggling. And you have like 2 people operating it. So every day, you saw just now the lady, right? You got to do this thing, 30 minutes, set up. Because the motorbike, no petrol, got to top it up. So installation is mounting. And now the question is this: how can the design team add value to the quality of the experience and improve the business of mapping? So back to that question, adding a feature. So I was asked, like, Kobe, your team, can you please do something like this? So we have the first version where we hack it on the first version camera, put it on a 4. Can you just design a new camera, give it a different shape, put 4 lenses there? My question to them is, of course, but you can do more. Let me show you. From a feature-centric, we design something like a system-centric. So the problem is not the camera itself. The problem is how can we deliver a tool which can empower users to collect information much more efficiently. So if you look at the left and the right, it's completely different. Take a step back, holistically think about it and transform the changes. And the third was relentless pursuit of product design excellence. So every detail is thoughtfully crafted. Every UX is intentional, so it's not by chance. You have to intentionally create. Every solution we created pushes the boundary of what is possible. So this is designed as a camera system. It's a compact, affordable 360-degree camera, traditionally designed for efficient street mapping imagery through seamless hardware and software integration. For professional cameras out in the market, if you want to buy, US $25,000. This one, $1,500. So how do we value capture it? Making it affordable, making it accessible for most people with better technology. So this is what we're trying to do. Cheap and good, in the Singaporean way, if you do that. The details. So the smooth curves, hidden ventilation system create a sophisticated yet minimal aesthetic. The hidden display and LED lights up only when needed to communicate information. Even the lines of the curve, I could just put 2 radius there, done, job done. But we didn't even do that. We do like a continuous curvature, looking even the details. Here's just one example. And also, if you look at the 4 cameras, right, drivers is like taking the 4 battery in the previous design, right? Take it out and charge, stand there and wait for it to finish charging, and then put it back. We thought we got to solve this problem. Okay, how do we solve this? So we basically said that you don't have to remember how to operate this camera. You don't have to remember how to take out the battery. Just need to remember you take 1 cable, plug into the wall. We take care of everything, the complex stuff. So you can see from here, right? 1 wire can charge external battery at the same time charge the camera. Done. 1 design for bike and walking. For motorbike mapping, and we go to like alleys, 1 minute, take out everything. Continue to culture of collaboration across teams. Collective effort shaped by collaboration across teams and countless conversation to solve complex problems. One of the problems is that we try to make it small, so we end up with a situation, it's overheating. And how to solve that overheating? We have a deep heat dissipation. Instead of cutting a hole, the ventilation is actually part of the design. We have the camera. Beyond that, we have an app to actually support the entire. This is how it works, turn-by-turn navigation, deep understanding of real-world problems, how we can add value to problems they face every day. I want to show you how we test this. Ergonomics as well. We test it in Indonesia, backpack, hardware design. We realized that people who install can't see our solution in live preview. we can, if the camera is off position, we know it, we have a notification in the app. Software design. Just now we're going to show you a video.
Traditional map-making methods aren't practical, scalable, or effective in Southeast Asia. Four-wheel collection vehicles can't access the narrow side streets and hidden alleys that are essential for navigating this region. If you've been on a grab bike in Jakarta, you know how crucial these hidden alleys are. So we did it our way, the Grab Maps way. Welcome to the future of map-making. Introducing the KartaCam 2, the world's smallest AI-powered map-making camera system. The KartaCam 2 captures panoramic images in 360 degrees. It is designed for wide, immersive shots, making it ideal for detailed street-level imagery. With its ergonomic design and versatile mounting base, the KartaCam 2 is compatible with a variety of vehicle models, ensuring that no roads or small alleyways are left unmapped. Additionally, its concealed cabling and waterproof backpack design enhance portability and user convenience. Equipped with a dual-band, high-precision GPS module, it offers improved position accuracy and signal stability, even in challenging environments. With its extendable antenna, the KartaCam 2 ensures reliable data collection anywhere, anytime. Thanks to its 4G connectivity and Bluetooth module, you can monitor the camera's real-time status and navigate routes through its dedicated app, ensuring seamless operation and convenience. Powered by Edge AI, the KartaCam 2 performs real-time image analysis and object detection directly on the device. Its automatic blurring capabilities ensure privacy by obscuring personally identifiable information like faces and car license plates without compromising on imagery quality. That's not all. Its smart capturing function ensures only high-quality images are uploaded to the cloud, minimizing low-quality images and conserving costs. The KartaCam 2 is also LiDAR compatible, enabling it to deliver detailed spatial information by accurately measuring the distances of surrounding objects. This technology allows the KartaCam 2 to capture the precise layout of surroundings with unparalleled accuracy. Building maps in a dynamic region challenges us to evolve and innovate. Awarded the Red Dot Award, the KartaCam 2 sets new standards in geospatial data collection. Join us in charting the uncharted and revolutionize mapmaking with the KartaCam 2.
Really, really cool. Thank you so much, Kowe. You know, when you talked about the small alleys of Jakarta earlier, you could see people a little bit surprised. Then after you mentioned Tengah, then everybody was like, that's how the KartaCam 2 really helps to kind of map these surroundings as well. Right now, it is time for us to invite our final speaker for today's forum. Representing SJ Campus is Ms. Charu Kokate, Senior Partner and Director of Safdie Architects Singapore Office. Guided by purpose, she envisions architecture as a catalyst for positive change, creating ripples that extend across communities, neighborhoods, and cities. Charu's portfolio features some of Singapore's most celebrated architectural achievements, including Marina Bay Sands Integrated Resort and Jewel Changi Airport, both PDA Design of the Year recipients. So let's put our hands together to welcome Charu, please.
I almost forgot that I had to speak after watching all these amazing presentations. It's so interesting to see that no matter what you're designing, whether it's furniture or whether it's a camera, there's so much of energy and team and thought goes behind it. No different than our buildings. I'm here to talk about Serbana Jurong campus. As you all are very familiar with Serbana Jurong, the company, which is a big service-oriented company made up of multiple other companies, and they approached us to design their headquarters. And it's a very ambitious company trying to really be the flagship of different services, architectural engineering services. And they had in mind headquarter building, something that people would recognize Singapore as the home of Serbana Jurong. And when anybody talks about headquarters, the image that you have always is something in downtown area on a couple of floors in a building. But the site was so far from downtown Singapore. It was impossible to create this whole huge, tall building, with the flag of Serbana Jurong. The site was in Jurong Innovation Park near Nanyang Technology, NTU. When we went to see the site, first we went to see NTU. What was it about? Because the site was a green plot of land with a lot of water in it, and it sloped from east to west. We couldn't even access the whole thing. We couldn't even see it. We just saw it from a distance. You all know NTU is small buildings, 6, 7-story buildings with beautiful courtyard. It's all spaced out everywhere. It's a campus. So when we came back from the site visit, one of the important things that we spoke with the management of Serbana Jurong was that this cannot be headquarters. It had to be a campus. And a campus that would be really something that companies don't think of, at least particularly in Singapore. You have campuses in California, in New York. You have Apple campus, other companies, but they're very different. We looked at the site. One of the most important things on the site, one of the most pleasant things on the site was there was an MRT plan on the southern end of the site. That was one of the big features, but nobody knew at that time when the MRT would be in operation and everything. The biggest challenge we thought was, if we are going to design a campus, how would we bring the urban street, or how do we bring the activities to our site? How do we do something that is going to energize and not be one of these buildings where, will not be used by anyone? The MRT station really gave us an inspiration of what the building would be, the core program of the building. It had to be something that had to be designed, the whole property had to be designed, not just for the users of Serbana Jurong, but had to be designed for the whole community. And it was very important because the more we discussed, the more we spoke with LTA and the more we spoke with other communities around, we realized that this train station was going to be used by the students, was going to be used by the other buildings, other labs around it. So we didn't think it was a good idea that people would walk around our building to get to the train. This had to be something that had to be designed that would think about the users plus the community around it. So we started with the program. I hope the video works. We started with the design of the spine. The design really started with the spine. The first thing, literally, when we were sketching and we wanted to show it to Moshe, we were working on the sketches. The first thing we drew was from the start to the end, the spine. And the way it worked out was that we would design a spine that would integrate not just the office blocks of Serbana Jurong, but also the gardens of Serbana Jurong. Because we had Eco Garden on one side, we had the train station on the other side, we had a green site on the east side. So we decided to go back and say, you know what, this is not going to be just a regular buildings, but this is going to be a village of buildings. This would be a cluster of buildings that would bring people together, that would bring people from everywhere together as they go to the train station. So when we said, I remember a meeting when we were talking to the management of Serbana Jurong, and we said, we're going to design a campus for you. And they're like, what's the big deal? Campuses exist everywhere. I said, the big difference in this campus and the campuses that exist everywhere is that this is open to public. The campuses all around the world, you need permission to enter. You need security to enter. But this would be something that would really emerge from the ground. This would be something that you would create a campus in the garden, which would be so relevant to Singapore, so relevant to the neighboring side, so relevant to what we were designing. So we have a huge spine that connects the MRT to the front of the building. We always like to start, instead of saying that you enter from the front and go to the MRT, we want to say this is where people come in. So although we have a formal entrance to the building, this is really going to be the place of activity. You have people walking in throughout the spine. There are multiple ways of going through, but this is, we think, is going to be an air-conditioned way which people are going to prefer in Singapore. We have our buildings arranged in such a way that result in gardens, that result in indoor gardens that can be used by everyone, by public as well as by the users. Of course, and we have the Jurong Eco Garden extending into our property. One big move that was made was that our buildings will not have a bigger footprint on the ground. So the way the buildings are designed, so this is, the east facade is on the other side, this is the west side. The way the buildings are designed are in such a way that the buildings that are on the western side, that is on the left-hand side, have stepped profile. That means the smallest footprint sits on the ground as the buildings extend up and get bigger. The eastern buildings are designed in a different way. The eastern buildings are designed to have a straight facade on one side, but sloping on the inner side. The end result was you create this amazing spine structure in the middle, which is the biggest or widest at level 1, which resulted in a space that would be the public space used by all. So if this is the entrance of the building, this would be the spine, the public space that would connect at level 1, open to all 24/7. The buildings really, the office blocks really start from level 2 onwards, which we call the private, the secure blocks. Level 1 is everywhere. We have all the public programs like the child care center, like the cafes, like the gym, a clinic. We have the meeting rooms. We have SJ museum or gallery space. As you continue, you go through internal gardens. The football-shaped stair that you see over there that leads down to the basement to one of our public spaces, which is a grand ballrooms or like a meeting room space. Going through gardens, you come out to the end. This is where our building would connect to the MRT. The MRT is under construction, is going to start. I think it's going to be in operation in 2 years from now. But this is what it is. And also connect to the M deck, the mobility deck, that Jurong has planned for the future. And so this would be all public space around the building. This was one of the first campuses in Singapore to get the green mark, super low energy. So we've taken care of all the technical aspects of it for the super low energy. At the same time, we tried something new, which was having underfloor cooling system for offices so that the cooling would be, you would just use it wherever people are. In our atrium garden spaces, which are indoor garden spaces, we've used ETFE roof with shading, and we've only cooled spaces which are like a couple of meters high, so that we're not really wasting energy. The building architecture leads itself to creating recessed openings for sun shading, brise soleil, integrated brise soleil, and of course we have all the other UV panels and all the things. At the same time, we studied the size of the office block. We wanted to make sure that every single office gets natural daylight filtering through. We wanted to make sure that everybody has views to nature. People work in offices for 8 to 10 hours every day, and we wanted to make sure that they're not disconnected with nature. We wanted to make sure that, when they're stressed out, there are spaces they can go out, they can sit in the garden, they can talk to people. We also used precast structure. The whole building is made up of precast structure, which was helpful for us during the COVID times because we had the beams and columns already fabricated. A steel frame for the A-frame, and of course I mentioned ETFE canopy to you. Some construction images just to give you an idea of how the structure is. So you can see, we tried to save, there was a very beautiful banyan tree, an old banyan tree, something like 60, 70 years old. We tried to save it as much as possible. It was a big chore for the contractor to make sure that, that we did not damage it. So that's one of the things that you can see. So here's the campus as it is completed and already in operation. This is the eastern facade, the straight facade with recessed windows in so that you can get the shade during in the morning hours. one of the things that was important to us when we were designing this was literally the size of the buildings. Because Sarvana Jurong has so many different departments, that it was important for us to make sure that we were creating these spaces, integrated spaces, that could be used by the various departments. These are all construction pictures for you to see. These are the blocks facing the west. Some of the shading devices that we used brise soleils, and we used glass, of course. This is the state-of-the-art glass that would allow cooling. This is just showing you how the footprint of the building, how the building gets bigger in size as it goes up, and really makes a big difference. It was challenging for the engineers, but at the same time, it really made a big difference, because the offices that needed more privacy, more working spaces, were really offices or sections of the company that occupied the higher floors. We integrated the eco garden. So the landscape of Sarvana Jurong is not something fancy trees or none of that sort. What we tried to do is we studied what was there in the eco garden, and we tried to use the same trees and the same landscape so that it felt seamless, so that everything felt like it was coming into our building. And it literally, this is basement. What you're looking at is basement floor. Because the site is sloping, we took advantage of the levels of the site. And it literally feels like you're walking in a garden, because all around you are trees. We made sure that there were activities. We made sure there were, of course, the bicycle paths and the infrastructure for the active mobility. This gives you an example of the stepping profile that you can see. Our banyan tree, which is also very important, because as soon as you enter the building, the design is such that the entrance looks pretty solid, and so you have no idea what's going behind it. As soon as you enter, it gives you this beautiful banyan tree view of the banyan tree as you walk in through the campus. This is the banyan tree courtyard that we call. And as I'm showing you the pictures, one of the things that I want to tell you is Sarvana Jurong's offices were in Bukit Merah area, in a closed building, and offices these departments did not even have natural light coming through. So you had these really tight spaces that they were working in, and all of a sudden you see these spaces, which was completely different from what they had imagined, the management had imagined it to be. And it's almost like, when we say architecture can influence people and architecture can influence how a company works, this is a great example of it. They really started rethinking about how the company works. They really started rethinking about how people should work together, because it became a space where you were connecting people. You were visually connecting, you were physically connecting people. You can see people walking on the bridges. You can see through people walking around. It became a place where the departments were not just different buildings, but it became a place where everybody started working together. So it's connecting people, connecting buildings, a different way of working completely. This is a view from one of the buildings showing the interior garden spaces. And, when we talk about luxury and when you talk about headquarters, when you talk about headquarters, you expect something really posh, something, beautiful marble walls in the lobby, and, you go into these big offices, corporate offices. The luxury that we have at Sarvana Jurong is natural light, is nature. And that, I think, is something very different that you miss in downtown areas. It's become such a gathering space. We were talking just before the President's Design Award thing, we were talking to the GCEO of the company, and I was asking him, because he joined after the building opened. So he joined after, he started looking into how the building operates and how people operate. And it became a very important dialogue with him. And he said that they really started looking at ways how meetings are held. So instead of having meetings just in a closed room, they started having meetings in the garden. So this became a different space. This became a space that people are prepared to do presentations, and anybody and everybody can go and attend those presentations. So it's not like by invitation only or in a meeting room only. And it's just changing the culture of the place, culture of the company. it's become a place, gathering places in the evening. They celebrate all the important days. They celebrate all the festivals, Chinese New Year, all throughout the whole spine, because they have more than 12,000 employees. Not in Singapore, but Singapore has around 4,000 employees. So it just makes a big difference how they operate on a daily basis. The meeting rooms and everything, all offices are in nature. It just feels very different from what they were used to. And I think we really hope that when you design spaces that bring people together, when you design spaces where there's free exchange of ideas, it's really a growth of a company. And I think we really think that this is where creativity really begins, because it is a place where you feel at peace. It is a place where you come in and it belongs to you. Whether it's bringing natural light down to the basement where it's the employee space. This is a team lounge for the employees, very popular space for them to rest. It's also filled with light coming through and garden around it. We've created, like I said in the beginning, multi-purpose halls that can be used not just by SJ, but also by the communities around it. These multi-purpose halls are used by the other labs or other buildings, other programs around SJ. In that also, we brought landscape down so that people can enjoy. You don't always have to sit in a closed amphitheater. You can have discussions in an open meeting spaces. And this was so much about spaces that, you talk about public spaces, private spaces, corporate spaces. This project has been so much about thinking about nurturing employees and about thinking about how future employees will look at, thinking about how architecture can really, really influence how people think about offices or how people think about work. And I think in the days to come, we are really excited once the MRT starts, because right now people do come in, the neighboring people do come in, the neighbors, and they come in, they have a cup of coffee and they go back because there's no way out. The train is still under construction. So we really look forward to, and we're waiting for the MRT to start, because it'll be filled with students and it'll be filled with other labs around it. And we can't wait for that to happen, because we know that every time you bring public in, or every time there are exchange of ideas and cultures, it's a miracle. It's something that we really look forward to. Thank you.
Take a seat over there on the last area. Thank you very much, Charu. I'm going to be inviting you to take a seat on, not really a stage, but at the front. And this is also the time where I'd like to invite the rest of our panel members to join Charu to take a seat at the front as well. We are going to proceed into the Q&A panel discussion right now. Moderating this session is Ms. Melissa Chan, Deputy Director for User Insights and Service Design at Singapore Global Network. Melissa knew that she wanted to be a designer from the young age of 4. People are at the heart of her work, and she believes that human-centric design informs meaningful, engaging, and sustainable solutions. Her 20-year professional journey has ranged from design doing, things like retail trends and insights, destination branding and master planning, interior architecture, wayfinding and signage, all the way to design thinking, physical digital experiences, and strategy. So ladies and gentlemen, as we begin this Q&A segment, please take this opportunity to scan the QR code that you see on the screen right now. This is your time to submit questions to any one of our members of the panel. And with that, I think it's great to see everybody lifting up their mobile phones right now. Let me hand the time over to Ms. Chan for this Q&A segment.
Thank you very much for that introduction. If anyone wants to stand up and stretch for 5 seconds, please go ahead and do so. I think it's been an enriching and very quite an intense start to the week. But there's so many things that we could talk about. And please do enter your questions, anything that you have for the panelists today. So the theme of today's panel and forum was about the Singapore brand in Singapore on the global stage. I think also that ties in with Singapore's 60th birthday, which is going to be in a few days. But also, with all the sharing that has been happening, I wanted to highlight that I think we can agree the Singapore brand is fundamentally about our people, our stories, and our residents, right? Amongst other things. So, Richard, if I might start with you, and we just get straight into it. For 21 Carpenter Street, what stories did you uncover? What secrets did you uncover in the course of the project?
I think, well, I'm not sure if there's secrets, but I think buildings are really interesting, I think, because they're sort of a locus. They're a place where many stories happened, and yet most of the stories have disappeared with time. You know, the building doesn't really record those stories, but conservation, I think, is really important at that. It starts a sort of process. So I think if the building hadn't been conserved, we would have never done the research. If we hadn't done the research, we wouldn't have uncovered these stories in the National Archive. And we're very lucky that this particular building had connection to a large repository of letters and things. And then it's always a fascinating process that when you do the research and you find this information hiding there. And then for me now, I think it's interesting that maybe us working on this and sharing a little bit about remittance houses that might attract the attention of a filmmaker or a novelist or something, that the Remittance House Archive gets a little bit of a boost of attention. And so it kind of creates a network of people finding things out and everyone understanding more about history. So I think there's a really important aspect of architecture that it sort of pins these interesting stories in a particular location, and maybe just by luck or by chance or in this case by the conservation program, these stories suddenly come to light. Old photographs, a letter in an archives. Now we find out that Swatow has a whole archive of Singapore stories that the president knew about, but I don't know how he can be so knowledgeable, but he was very full of information on that. So, I think that's a really good example about how conservation is not just about bricks and mortar, but in the end it's this what they mean in human terms and our understanding of ourselves where they're most important.
Thank you. For the next question, I'm combining a question that has come from the audience and also this theme of Singapore on the global stage for Gabriel. As a Singaporean overseas, what does the Singapore brand mean to you, and how do you see yourself in that light, being in Porto and away from home?
Well, for me, I felt that in Singapore we have a mix of culture, and I've always viewed like this mix of culture as very much a part of my upbringing and my personality, and that's why I try to involve people of different cultures in my projects, be it Origin Made, which I started with my wife Sherry, or Ariake in Japan, and in a sense, I don't really consciously try to bring out a Singapore identity through my work, but I think over the years when I look back and also what people write about me or tell me personally from my friends, they find that is the unique thing about the way I approach things. And also about this craft preservation and craft promotion is also, I feel so deeply about it, is partly because when I was trying to make things, I found that we have in some ways lost this in Singapore, or maybe we never had it, but it doesn't mean that I cannot work with craft. I just have to find it somewhere else in the world, because craft belongs to humanity in a way, and not just the country where it is from. And I think our identity is shaped that way in Singapore. We don't really we take something from different parts of the world and we amalgamate it into our own. Yeah.
Excellent answer. There is a follow-up question, if I can pose this to the architects on the panel. We often talk about, the question says, we often talk about Japanese Scandinavian aesthetics in architecture, but are there any definitive Singaporean aesthetics in architecture, and what would you consider aspects of that contributes to this identity?
I think Singapore is interesting because it's a city and a nation, but it's a very small place. And I think in many parts of the world, the craft is not necessarily taking place in a big city. It's often in the periphery. So, in some ways, I think Singapore is like a high-intensity node in an international network. And it's always been a trading post. So I think particularly Singapore is able to draw on these networks across the world, and I think the architecture in many ways reflects that. We now build with all our curtain walls are made in China because that's where it's the flows of trade and industrialization and things, the whole model of global trade ends up, and but our marble may come from Turkey or Italy, and so in some ways I would say Singapore is defined as this network of trading routes, and a Singapore local architecture is a kind of assemblage of global materials that flow through the port.
Thank you. I'm going to change it up a little bit and ask Rucha and Marc, as part of the Bird Paradise team, such an iconic brand that has been with Singapore for such a long time, and as an attraction on the global stage, a place that tourists and visitors would come see us. Were there any interesting incidents or stories to tell about actually working with the residents of the bird park rather than the visitors?
Actually, right when we introduced the birds to the aviaries, we noticed, we have few stories to share about that. We had preserved a large bamboo cluster in one of the aviaries in Heart of Africa. And when we introduced the weaver birds, they immediately took to that aviary and that particular bamboo cluster, sort of getting those fine nesting materials from there, and it became a colony of weaver birds. That was something, for example, we had not planned for, but it was a wonderful surprise, and it was like one of those stories for animal care team and the experts to be able to see that the birds are actually quite comfortable enough in the space to be able to even start nesting. So that was one. And then the other funny one is that we had all these parrots in the aviaries that started to chew on a lot of our metal cables. They had such sharp beaks that they could chew through some of the cabling that even had metal inside. So we had to sort of scramble quickly and look at sort of galvanized iron piping to be introduced at the very last stages of the projects. And in the beginning, when we soft launched, there were, sure enough, videos on the internet of birds sort of chewing up the pipes and all of that. This sort of tells you that, no matter how hard you sort of anticipate the things and you design for the birds, there is always some things that's you just have to see them take to the space and understand. That's kind of my two stories during the construction.
When we create each habitat, we are creating a society, animal society. So it's very similar to your previous question, actually. So it's not an urban society, it's not a human society, it's an animal society, a bird society. And actually, we had some other animal underground to create more interaction than only with birds. You have bird between the habitat, bird between birds, and bird with also other animals. So nobody have been prepared for these interactions before. So even your birds used to live have a real 10 meters long, 2 meters width. You open to 1.5 hectares. The first 2 weeks is quite complicated to find his way, to find his food, to find his friend, where are the enemies, where are the competitors. So we had some time for this. It's exactly, you bring Singaporeans, I don't know, French or whatever, together around the same tables. You have issue for the diets, you have an issue of the design of the table, you have a design of the chair. So we had this. And it was very, very interesting how the keepers, how the team pick up and become, when you create a very small space safe for the animals, you don't have much things to do, just feed them. But when you create an open space, you have to take care of them. I'm sure the integration is smooth and efficient. And the implication of the staff, the implication of the visitors as well, was much more than what we had in the Jurong Bird Park.
Thank you. As they say, it's really hard to work with animals and children, isn't it? So that's sort of, I'm sure.
If I may just say something else on what you said for Singaporean
please.
art. I'm here in Singapore for 20 years. It's normal to think how Singapore moved, but today we have plenty of Singaporeans with talent everywhere in the world. You go to all the big cities, you have Singaporeans on the very key role, and sharing how the Singaporean style is efficient, the energy of Singapore as well. So it's not only Singapore itself, it's creating a very giant global network on the Singaporean vision as something very, very relevant to me now, very efficient.
Thank you. I have a few questions, and I'm going to sort of summarize some of them, and not only to who they're directed to, but also I think these are quite interesting questions for most of the panelists. So the next question is for Koe, Charu, and Gabriel. And really it's about people are asking, what is the DNA of your design? What is how I would say, what is at the heart of your design? So if we can start with Koe and then come round.
At the heart of the design, right, is really to know and be on the ground with the user what is going through using the stuff we are building for them. From that UX, right, then we come with the design. So understand the user is one of the most critical point. Yeah, and design is just a execution of that.
Charu?
You know, and this is true for all types of design or architecture, furniture, anything. One of the big things is that when we get the program from the client, when we receive a program brief from the client, to be able to understand more than that, to be able to add value, not just from what you see, but more than that, I think that's the DNA of our project. It's like, how can we design something for the community? Now, Singapore is a small place. And one of the things in Singapore that I've learned personally in the last 15 years, I came here from Boston during the Marina Bay Sands construction. One of the things is the strive for excellence. Constantly trying to be excellent and trying to do something that doesn't exist or to be the best. And that takes a lot of energy, a lot of work from everyone, from Singaporeans and everyone. So even if you're designing an office building, to design something that people are going to work hard, how do you give them relief and how do you do it? Not just for the people who are working in those offices, but also for the neighborhood, for the community around it. I think that's what we keep on striving for.
Thank you. And Gabriel?
In my line of work is when we're designing products is a bit different to architecture in the sense that we are trying to design products that will sell ultimately, even though we have goals for the product to be sustainable, to be emotional, but at the end of the day, if the product doesn't sell, then the product will be deemed a failure. So for me, it's about connecting the dots between the time and the place, and as well as the people that are using it. So for example, when I was thinking about the sofa for Herman Miller, it was a time of COVID. It was a time where people were feeling insecure. So the topic in my head, and I think that the topic in other people's head, was security, softness, comfort. And that was why, I guess, when I showed it to Herman Miller, they said that this was exactly the type of product we are looking for. And it was the same with the Sahara acoustic panels. It was also during COVID times, and Abstracta was looking for an acoustic panel that wasn't made of a material that they could clean with disinfectants. And cork is a hydrophobic material, so it's perfect for this use, and it's also a very sustainable material, which during COVID people thought about sustainability a lot as well. So yeah, for me, it's like connecting time, place, and people to be at the right place, the right time, for the right target audience, ensures that a product will be successful when it's launched. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. And actually, if I read a bit more closely, the question actually directed to Mandai. What is the DNA? Sorry, let me get it up. What is the DNA of what you created at Bird Paradise, and is this something that you can see being as a model for other attractions in the region or in the world?
To be a model to follow, yes, probably. As we discussed earlier, animal in captivity, animal interactive with human is a philosophic question today. Are we planning to stay alone on Earth, or are we planning to share the space with animals? Something very critical. So we offer the simple options to keep educations, cultural concerns, environmental quality. Yes, probably another step, but we should do much, much better than that. So we have other ideas. We will develop what we have today, but it's probably the directions we should go.
Thank you. There are quite a number of questions coming from the audience about challenges. It's not something we have prepared for in our own talks about this panel, but I think people want to know. There's a sense that this work is hard. So, what do you feel are the biggest challenges with maybe the particular projects or particular practice that you're in? And how did you overcome them is a sort of a easy way as well to talk about them, or even ones that you didn't and weren't able to. Maybe we can start with that side of the panel. Charu.
I think there's no such thing as an easy profession to begin with, in life. But I'll just talk about this particular challenge. The first challenge was to convince the client to think of a campus versus headquarters. The next challenge was to reprogram what they were thinking about the buildings in terms of donating a large part of their building to public, which they did not have that in mind when they began. I think it's one of those. I think the biggest challenge came during COVID. To have a building that is halfway through construction, completing it, and with the deadlines and everything. But I think in terms of an architecture, the biggest challenge comes in when you want to do something more than what the client wants, and that means they have to spend money on it, which is kind of a fair thing for them to to think about it multiple times. I think that's the challenging part. But I think overall, it was not such a bad project. Not that challenging.
Thank you. Coley?
The biggest challenges is you got to work with different stakeholders, and different stakeholders have different point of view as well. And I'm kind of like stuck in between, and my designers is like look up to me, and as a design leader, what do I do? So my goal here is, as you can see, just now I presented, right? Product managers would say, hey, just design this camera. But I said, no, let's build a system. This means, back to Charu's point of view, is I have to invest a little bit more effort, a lot more time. Do you get a buy-in? That is the most difficult part of it. But I think the output would be much greater than what was previously imagined as building a device. So eventually, I managed to convince the rest of my stakeholders, from engineering to putting the effort in, the product as well, and the leadership too. Yeah, so that is tough for me. Yeah.
Thank you. Marc?
For us, design is innovation. So we are always going to new territory with very different profile, different background. So the big challenge, the biggest challenge for us is to keep the quality of conversations, make sure everyone understands what we are designing and building. You have in this industry, especially in constructions, you have engineers, you have architects, you have contractors building stuff, but not knowing how it will be used. So this one is key for us, to keep a very transparent quality of conversations, make sure the authorities, the owners, the users, the operators are sharing the same visions. And most of the time when you do design, as I said, you explore new way to operate, new way to own. Then is the big challenges. Keep the quality of conversation and make sure we go all together to the same target.
I think it's easy to convince people than birds to move to a new place.
I always tell my team that like a project is a bit like those, I can't remember what they're called now, those shows on TV, the Sunday evening ones where people go through the obstacle course and there's giant hammers hitting them and you fall in the water and then something else swings around. So it's like the profession is making your way through that obstacle course, really, and how do you keep your ideas intact in some form or another, but they're flexible enough to get whacked with a giant hammer and plunged into the water. And so to see all those unforeseen but predictable disasters as a sort of chance to demonstrate your skill and to show how the concept for the project is strong enough to be adapted. And I think expecting them to happen helps a lot. So when they come, you go, so this project is going to have the budget problem, or this project is going to get COVID, So it was going along well. So of course the project caused COVID halfway through, and then we've got to change everything. Yeah. So I think, it's a cheerful attitude, expecting the worst, and then using your creativity to enthusiastically embrace whatever's happened.
Yeah, I think for both architects and designers, we need to be like one of those, I don't know what you call those toys, where you hit it and it bounces back up, right? Like for a furniture designer, I think the biggest challenge for us is that there is no furniture manufacturing industry here. So I always tell my friends, from Italy or from France or from even Portugal, when they complain about, not being able to find work or have enough clients, I remind them that, in their countries, they do have furniture industry and furniture companies that they can collaborate with, be it famous ones or not so famous ones, but there is the option to hit up a factory or a company and to introduce your work within a short drive from their homes. Whereas for me, I always had to fly to different countries, Japan, to Milan, to try to... By nature, I'm not a very extroverted person, actually, but I just had to make myself become one if I wanted to work with these companies. And there were lots of awkward conversations, bad jokes that didn't elicit any laughters. It's that kind of situations where you just thought, oh shit, I should have said things differently. Maybe I could have gotten a project. But after 10 years of this, you finally can get some laughs out of a room. And people start to think that maybe this guy is not so bad after all to work with. small talk is really important, and I had to learn it the hard way through failed jokes and awkward silences. Yeah.
Thank you for your answers. I'll go back around this way again and bother Gabriel a bit more. As you talked about your work and your experiences, the philosophies of craftsmanship, timelessness, but also resourcefulness, and what you mentioned is just grit and getting better at your business and also your craft. How do you find harmony amongst all these elements? How do you bring them together?
Harmony between
all the different aspects of your craft and your business.
Yeah, it's a lot about trying to get as much experience as I could in my earlier years, and then later on trying to connect them. You know, sometimes I remember visiting a factory from 5-6 years ago, and then a client is looking for a certain project, a certain new material, and then I remember that and I try to find a contact and say, like, maybe we could use this company, or when I hear just through conversations about a certain region being very interesting, you know, sometimes even through bar conversations in Milan, a certain designer telling me about a certain material or a certain company looking for help, and then sometimes it's not even me doing the intervention, but also getting the right people to do it, recommending a friend, and then the favor comes back to me. But yeah, I think it's I guess for the architects as well, for interior designers, it's a lot about getting wide exposure and wide experiences, and then trying to connect the dots in your head and applying it to your business over time. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Apart from this, I think there's some questions about impact from the audience. So how I frame this is really about impact, legacy, and imprinting on our landscape and our situation. For Marc, and Rucha, if she's here still, what do you hope the legacy of Bird Paradise is going to be for future generations? Not only in terms of maybe for humans, but also for our wildlife friends.
Actually, we have done a completely environmental assessment we start 10 years ago until now. We are still learning of what's happening in Mandai from the wildlife point of view. Our contribution, it was agricultural land before, as I say, green, but it was very impacted. You just remove the grass, you can see the foundation of the compound. It was a no man's land, very impacted. And after our development, and sincerely, we bring the forest to a level of Singapore should be. So when I see garden on landscape and your beautiful garden and your city, I think the responsibility with the space we have here, we should take care and choose carefully the species and recreate ecosystem. Don't talk about eco-garden. Eco-garden doesn't exist. Ecosystem or mini or macro ecosystem, and where you can, try to attract what can survive with us. And I think it's what we did on the very large scale. Our property is 1 to 8 hectares, so it's huge. And what we are trying to do every day, not only the animals in captivity, not only our guests, but is to create a good place to be. And we have enough flora, fauna in Singapore to recreate a fantastic place to be with our attractions, with our living, our school, is very, very important. Just keep this quality of environment. It will make a huge difference with the rest of the world. We can make a demonstration in Singapore.
Thank you, Kowi. The question is, what's the biggest impact of the project?
The biggest impacts actually, you can hear the voices of the people which is using your products that, hey, this is making my life a little bit better. This is quite motivating for me. So for and how we can use like making, like you have a problem, then you have the technology, and then how can we make this solution a little bit much more stress-free for the people who's going to use this. So I think that is something I'm kind of happy about it. And the impact is also like beyond earnings, right? But across the platform as well, making the platform much more efficient, not just for the mappers. The drivers can quickly complete their job. The eaters or the mobility, the consumers can actually get a car much more faster. That is the impact delivered.
Thank you. I also noted quite a few technical questions that Kowi has gotten in the pigeonhole. So I'm volunteering him, but please feel free to go up and ask him those questions. We won't be addressing those right now due to time constraints. And then lastly, at the end of the panel, Charu, what is as a site such as SJ Campus, you mentioned the focus on community and embeddedness. What do you hope its imprint will be on the neighborhood and on the area in the future?
I think inspiring a company to think about employees not just from a point of view of success, like a company's success and whatever definition of success is in today's market. I think inspiring them to think about nurturing. I think inspiring to think about bringing people together, learning from each other, not working in isolation. It's almost like mental health, taking care of mental health of your employees. I think we hope that that's the legacy. I think when we were trying to convince our idea, that was something that we were discussing a lot about it. And I hope that as a company, it becomes an example that people see a big corporation can also do that in a different way, in a simpler way. I think we hope that will be the legacy.
Thank you very much. So I have two sort of similar question for the last two panelists. For Gabriel, you mentioned family first and foremost in your acceptance speech at the award ceremony last week. From that lens, how do you see legacy of your practice?
Well, the beauty about furniture design or product design is that, our journey on this world is only defined by maximum of like 90 years. But in some sense, the children of our work, which will be all these chairs and tables or lamps, could potentially be living for, if I'm lucky, a few hundred years, if a few of them become timeless designs. So this is what drives me every day to try to create products that could maybe live beyond my lifetime in the homes of other people. And in some sense, the people that use my products are somehow connected through me as well, like as though they are part of my family, not just my own family, but somehow being able to influence or make their lives a little bit better through a portable lamp or through a chair that they feel comfortable in. It makes me feel more human, like this connection with people that I don't know in some way. And that's why I don't feel this as a job. I feel this more as part of my life, this design thing. That's why I go visit factories when I'm on vacation.
Wonderful, thank you. And actually, we're coming to the end, and thank you for staying with us. To round it all up, Richard, what does a project like 21 Carpenter Street remind us about our heritage and legacy in the built environment?
Well, I'm almost 60, so I'm nearly the same age as Singapore, and I'm realizing, my parents are very old, and suddenly you realize that you've got more days behind you than in front of you. And so I think you also start thinking about like your own legacy and how important maybe history and storytelling and all our human lives are. So I guess doing 21 Carpenter and thinking about adaptive reuse projects in future, because I think they're going to be really important going forward in a lower carbon future, is that every building has interesting stories, and it's the interaction of human stories with buildings. It doesn't have to be famous people or really significant events, but just the fact of all these lives lived in our existing structures, all the stories to be told. I think we can start cherishing really ordinary things more, and in our design, whether it's architecture or interior or product design, that these human stories are what make things meaningful. And so I think, but it might just be because I'm old, because I think when you're young, it's all about the future. But I think maybe with Singapore turning 60, because Singapore's been very future focused, at age 60, you start also thinking a little bit more about your past.
Wonderful, thank you. And with that, I'm going to, and no other questions coming up, I'm going to close the panel. Thank you very much for being here with us today.